Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan Jai, Akshar Purushottam Maharaj Jai, Gunatitanand Swami Maharaj Jai, Bhagat Ji Maharaj Jai, Shastri Ji Maharaj Jai, Yogi Ji Maharaj Jai, Pramukh Swami Maharaj Jai, Mahanta Swami Maharaj Jai, Surat Akshardham Mahotsav Jai. So first off, Swami, thanks for taking out the time today. It's Ikadashi, so it's a great way to spend the day.
Yes. Yes.
Like for everybody who may not be so familiar, Ikadashi as a upwas, or as a day of fast, is something that Guru Mahan Swami Maharaj is very, very excited about, which is really the opposite of what I feel on a fast day. And he has this category of making sure that we all go back and keep true to our roots of fasting, in which you don't sleep in the afternoon, you stay awake till midnight. So it's a great day to focus on God. And so that's why I'm happy you spent the time today. The thing I wanted to talk to you about specifically is something that's kind of stayed with me over the last, I would say, year or so since we've had this conversation. It's regarding Pratham 74. Pratham 74 is the Vachanamrut that the reason I don't remember all the numbers of the Vachanamrut very easily, but Pratham 74 is easy for you to remember because it's 1974 that Bapa comes back from the trip in Africa and has to do this Nirupan the morning after. And as Bapa tells us that day, Pramukh Swami Maharaj says that day, the main crux of that message is that God is the all-doer. Bhagwan is Sarva Karta Hartha. And that we should be pleased in whatever circumstance He places us.
Yeah.
And by having that kind of grace of acceptance, you can actually do the two things you're meant to do, which is to be happy and worship God. And I like to joke about how that, for me, is like, if everyone's confused about what to do in life, for me, Bhagwan Swaminarayan answered it in that line. Ke Anand Mariu, Bhagwan Pujya. So the crux of it is this kartapanu. But as I read through the Vachanamrut, I always try to make an effort to kind of go down take an exit off the highway. Like every Vachanamrut has the title, and it's got like the main idea that we always talk about, which I consider the highway. But then as I'm going on that journey, I want to make sure that I take every little exit I can on the different words he's using, and maybe there's something else there that we can pick up. So when I called you about a year ago, I said for Pratham 74, one of the things that I found very interesting was the fact that Bhagwan Swaminarayan tells Muktanand Swami that you should never let all these external circumstances ever make you feel upset. Right? And I'm paraphrasing, but make you feel upset. And Muktanand Swami says, Maharaj, generally, I'm good, no problem. But when a Hari Bhakta feels something, goes through something tragic, then of course we feel bad for them. And he gives the example that Dada Kachar has gone through some hardship, and we wonder and we feel bad for him, but we also wonder that if a Hari Bhakta goes through that, what would others think? And would they feel samas for satsang? Or would they feel that God is there for them if they're not there for Dada Kachar? And so we feel a little sad and we pray extra and we have, we feel down. And he says that, and Shriji Maharaj answers that question. But before we get to that answer, the thing that I want to stress is Muktanand Swami is not making this up. This isn't Muktanand Swami is not an amateur like me who's just saying something that he randomly feels. He lives a very principled life. And this is exactly what Shriji Maharaj says in the Vachanamrut Daya and Sneh.
Yeah.
Right? That if you actually have learned Gnyan from the true Sampradaya, right, you would retain compassion and love for God and His devotees.
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, so none of the body's pain matters, so your pain doesn't matter, and I can retain care for you. So Muktanand Swami seems to be taking that to its natural end. Well, I care for Dada Kachar, I care for satsang, this is not me being selfish, it's okay. And Shriji Maharaj answers the question after Muktanand Swami gives this doubt to say, but Swami, listen, even if all of satsang should cease to exist, you should never allow your happiness to falter. And you should always remember God to be all-doing and be happy and worship God. That's the essence. I'm really summarizing. Yeah. So the takeaway that, the exit that I took there, away from the kartapanu, was I found that interesting for Maharaj to say, Akho satsang mati jao. For satsang to not exist. So the way I talk about it, when I talk about it with yuaks and stuff, is like, God comes on earth. He doesn't come because he was bored. And he's not here just because like, hey, I want to have some fun and take a break, so let me come to earth. He came with a mission. He came with a purpose. When we refer to the Gita, it's yada yadai dharmasya. When dharma finds glani, when it decreases, I come back to reestablish it, to give it strength again, right? And so God's purpose on earth, Bhagwan Swaminarayan comes to earth to establish the fellowship, to establish satsang, to further it. And here he's telling Muktanand Swami, Swami, if all of satsang cease to exist, don't let that trouble you. That's happening according to my will. And that to me, in an emotional way, is really powerful, because it's like God saying, my purpose on earth and your happiness, if I put them on a scale, I want you to value your happiness. And I'm willing to sacrifice my purpose on earth. Like that to me, I'm not fussed. I'm telling you, you focus on you. And I took that very powerfully to say, what that should mean then is, how much do I value my happiness? If God is willing to value my happiness so much, how do I value my happiness? You know, when somebody's 5 minutes late, do I sell my happiness for 5 minutes? Right? If the salt is too much, am I selling my happiness for a pinch of salt? Like, what is the worth of my happiness? And for what do I give it away so easily, right? And that was kind of my take, and I shared that with you, and you were a little skeptical. And you shared that maybe it was a bit oversimplified. And so I wanted to explore that with you in person.
Sounds really mean if I said it like that.
No, you weren't mean about it. But like,
I don't know if it's simplified, but I think what Maharaj is saying when he's giving this message at the end, that be happy. And the analogy he gives is the way a dry leaf flows in the wind, right? And so it doesn't offer much resistance. And in fact, whatever resistance it does offer, it kind of uses to continue its flight and kind of have movement with the wind. And I think what that analogy is saying is that accept Bhagwan's will. Accept God's will. That Bhagwan has something in place. And for the things that you do it, because that's in your control. God's given you that power to make choices. But when those choices don't turn out the way you want, accept them to be a part of something bigger, and allow God's will to move you in a certain way so that the movement keeps you going. Don't fight it. Don't be so resistant to it. Don't break with that wind. Flow with the wind. Flow with Bhagwan's will. And so what I was probably alluding to is the idea that there are aspects to...
Can I remind you what you said?
Yes, please.
Because I remember a little bit.
Right.
Right? The example that you gave, which I thought was a very good example, and why I wanted to have this conversation was, a person could say, okay, I don't feel happy, so I won't do it. Or this doesn't strike me to cause me joy in the moment. So the way they set up the example is, okay, let's say a couple is going somewhere and one of the members of the couple are late and the other person throws a tantrum. Naturally, the guy throwing the tantrum or the woman throwing the tantrum should choose happiness and not sell their happiness for 5 minutes of time. That seems to make sense. But if not understood properly, the misuse would be, I don't feel like going. I don't think going would make me happy, so you go on your own. I'm not going to come. Like, right. And that could be applied to satsang. It could apply to education. It could be an opt-out, right? Like, I just want the fun way, and I'm not going to do the hard work.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a part of what you're saying is like, going with the will is not the same as opting out.
Yes, because see, part of Bhagwan's will is that he's given a certain amount of shakti to every jiv to actually do something. And with that comes some responsibility. right? To act in a certain way. That's why there's karma siddhanta, otherwise there will be no karma siddhanta. And if it was just God's will and there's nothing else for every jeev individually, then there'd be no sense of responsibility and no sense of karma. It would all be on God. But Bhagwan has given the ability for us to think, to follow through.
Vichar Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti.
So, Ejetran Shakti Api Chapan, the three Shaktis that He's given us, that comes with a certain amount of responsibility. So you must be accountable for those choices. So if I make that choice that, you know what, I'm not even going to go, that's fine. But I can't say that that's Bhagwan's will. Right? I made that choice. Bhagwan, His will, His power, everything set up, everything for me to make the decision on what to do.
So can I propose it a different way?
Yes.
So He's not saying choose the things that make you happy. He's saying choose to always be happy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that I agree with. So to be happy, you have to be in a homeostasis with Bhagwan's kartapan, or Bhagwan's will. You know, there's an interesting thing in the Vachanamrut where, and Maharaj does this a lot with Muktanand Swami. Like he kind of sets him up. This Vachanamrut starts with a prasang of Maharaj himself, kind of blasting the horns about how Dada Khacher's darbar is in trouble.
Yep.
There's these soldiers that are on the way. They're going to take all the land, and he's causing the alarms.
Yep.
And after he himself causes the alarms, then he says this Vachanamrut.
Yep.
Hey, you know, I noticed that some of you guys reacted really negatively. There's another Vachanamrut where Maharaj kind of, I feel like there's a little bit of gaslighting, where he asks Muktanand Swami, is Maya Sukhdai or Dukhdai?
Yep.
And I mean, we even say that Maya is Dukhdai. It just is. That's part of what we say is its natural characteristic. And Maharaj says, well, if it's Dukhdai, then how can you say all of these things that are Mayik, that are contributing to us becoming better, progressing in Satsang? Like a mandir, like a shastra. Because a book,
the matter of it is from the product of Maya.
Mayik.
Yeah.
And so Maharaj says that for Bhagwan no Bhakta, because that Bhagwan no Bhakta brings the association of Bhagwan into everything. Even Maya can be Sukhdai. And so I think that's the complexity that Maharaj is bringing into this conversation as well. When he says that, look, learn to be happy. Be happy. If you ask someone who has a very deranged sense of pleasure what it means to be happy, it's very problematic. That doesn't apply here. So there has to be some standard to which Maharaj is referring to when he says to be happy. And I think what he's implying with that statement is to say that don't resist. In terms of, don't force yourself in a situation where you will break. Put yourself in a situation where you can be at homeostasis with what's happening and continue to function optimally. So to be happy, I think, in this case, is not necessarily to be smiling or experiencing great joy.
Yeah, it's not throwing a party that Dada Khacher's had a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's to be in the flow of being able to function properly so that your emotions don't get in the way of your function. I think that's what he's implying, where, like, the Gujarati phrase, Anand Mareu. Right? So, Anand Mareu means to remain within this state. Yes.
Be unperturbed is not the same as throw a party, be joyous. Like,
yes, yes. And you know, for us, the state of happiness is defined in so many ways, and it's so subjective often. It's seen as a subjective thing. Whereas in the world of spirituality, when you think about yogis who are happy, there is an objective state of happiness that they experience, which is a little bit different from, how we otherwise think of it, it's always subjective. Each person has a different definition of what happiness is.
And Maharaj kind of points to that in the same Vachanamrut, like to kind of give more strength to what we're talking about. This is not just like something that the two of us are sitting here making up as we go. In that same Vachanamrut in the beginning, when Maharaj is defining apatkar, right? In apatkar, he doesn't just say, when things don't go your way, he says, samjan, meaning understanding, your understanding of God's will and grace and his glory and all of that, Bhagwan's Aishwarya and everything, his kartapanu, is tested not just when things go wrong, but he also says, when you get the vishays, right? Which means that if your definition of pleasure was fulfillment of carnal or worldly desires, right? Then all of those materialistic ideas get defined out of that word of pleasure by Bhagwan Swaminarayan when he asks the question. He says, hold on, when you get everything you want, that's also a test of your understanding. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Like if it was a part of the definition of the joy that he wants us to keep, anand marevu, then it would not be a test of your understanding.
Right.
And so I think that what you're saying about the definition of happiness is supported within the same Vachanamrut when Maharaj says this, right? To say that, no, this isn't material, which makes it subjective. The subjectivity of happiness comes from materialism.
Yes.
And it's like the second you take materialism out,
right,
now you're talking about contentment.
Right.
And that's a more universal kind of feel.
Yeah, and just to make it a little closer to principle, right? Like if we're going to fine-tune what we're saying here, Maharaj says in the presence of vishays. And I think every jeev has a different level of attachment and desire for vishays. And their preference for the vishays are also different. But there's something about vishays in general that they are the cause for attachment. And so what Maharaj says is in apatkar or in the presence of vishays. Because it's not necessary that someone has to be overtly desirous of vishays to be negatively influenced by them.
By their presence.
By their presence.
Sat Marni Haveli.
Exactly. Maharaj gives he talks about Muktanand Swami and Gopalanand Swami. That if they're in a sabha, so when we're saying that, what Maharaj is saying that vishays themselves is a test, it's a litmus test. And then apatkar, when things are in chaos, that is a litmus test. And that's what he's just pointing to. He's just pointing to that, look, if you want to know where your sojourn is, pay attention to what happens when these things are present. And you'll know. You'll get an idea of where you are if you're paying attention. And, like you said, Muktanand Swami wasn't someone to just rationalize his behavior and, just make an excuse. He was someone who was very, very introspective, someone who was very learned, very wise, and, very experienced. And
very honest in his effort. Extreme, like integrity to the max.
Amazing. Like Muktanand Swami Maharaj's favorite word, pramanikta. Like I can't imagine someone who does it like Muktanand Swami. Like, so pramanik. And so that Muktanand Swami, when he's saying this,
which, by the way, like in this Vachanamrut as well.
Yeah.
When the question is brought up, I saw some of you fail. He coughs it up on his own, like, yes, this is what happened. Yeah. Like, Maharaj, this is what we thought, you're right.
Yeah. And Maharaj, I mean, it's like you said that, the Dayana Snenu Vachanamrut, that comes later. So it's not like Maharaj is outright rejecting what Muktanand Swami says, but he is trying to direct Muktanand Swami's attention to a higher need. That, look, ultimately, you're responsible for your state. Like you have to be thinking along these lines. That when this happens, so it's not to say that, hey, you shouldn't have compassion for a devotee, that you shouldn't share in that devotee's pain, but you should pay attention to what's actually affecting you. because it's very possible that both things are happening at the same time. And if you have an increased level of awareness, then maybe you can separate.
Like the Bharatji problem. You meet this little fawn that's separated from its mother, and you want to care for it. That's compassion. Fantastic. You should do that. But when does that compassion turn into attachment?
Yes.
And that discernment is what you're saying, is Maharaj is pointing out here, that you have to maintain stability. Remember that you have attained God regardless, that Purnakampanu and Dhanyosmi and all of that is always active, like that button is always green. And from that position of stability, continue to have compassion and do the best you can for the people around you.
Yeah, he's asking for a higher level of mindfulness. You know, a lot of times, you know, there are people who are maybe of a past generation. They like to talk about how, you know, if you don't discipline your children, then they'll be spoiled. And, you know, the more modern take is that, well, we should be very aware of how we discipline, right? Because it's more towards the side of compassion, and, you know, there's still all these more evolved, so quote unquote, you know, discussions about mental health and all those things. But, you know, the real issue spiritually is that, okay, when you're disciplining your children, are you taking an easy out? Or are you sincerely concerned with their well-being? And that's very hard to separate. Are you just angry? Are you just frustrated? Are you just exercising your frustration in action? And then saying afterwards, oh, I did it because my child needed to be taught something. And that's very hard to separate, to be aware of that. I mean, you have to be someone who's very spiritually sound, who's not doing one thing and actually engaging in something else. So,
can I just say though, like, I feel like the discussion reminds me of something that I've felt for a long time about why it's cool. The way that spirituality and religion works for all of us is like, there's some people who really think and make great speeches about religion being about black and white. And it's funny because, like, in my experience growing up in Satsang and like the way that we're talking about things now, you realize that like Sanatan Dharma, Hinduism, the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, which is what I like, I'm not saying others don't have it, but these are the things that I've experienced, so I'm speaking for that. They love to live in the gray. Like to say, look, man, I'm going to give you stuff, but it's a toolkit based on awareness. It's not a rules kit that applies you. Like, a parent should never discipline their child. That will never be said. But how you should be disciplined is, like you said, about awareness. Am I yelling or spanking or doing whatever I will do, like you said, as a shortcut, as a lack of emotional awareness and then all of that? Or is this some really extreme incident in which I need to like genuinely intervene in a more higher pitched tone, right? Like, that's not something that you can make a rule book for. That's an awareness thing. In the same way with like Muktanand Swami, like you said, always finds himself in this situation. Pratham 67, Maharaj asks him, like, how do you get the Satpurusha's qualities? Muktanand Swami says, you listen to what he says, you do as he says, and you attain that state. Pratham 6 says that, Pratham 16 says that. So he says, this is the rule. Here's the prescribed statement from Pratham 6 and 16. And here in Pratham 67, Maharaj goes, okay, let me tell you something more, right? Like, it's like, you're not wrong, but let me take you to Vivek. And let me take you to the gray and not just the letter of what I've said. And I think that's really cool about what you're saying, is that there is a lot of this awareness that we have to realize that if we're looking to satsang to only give us black and white rules, that's also a cheat code. Like, it's not cheat code, sorry, that's us cheating. What we need to realize is some of the things that are happening to raise our awareness so that we can do these things better within an ecosystem, as opposed to having like clear distinction. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, it does. And I think there's reasons for that. The reasons for that is, if you take into account the nature of, you know, the jiv, which is eternal. So you have so many births already in our past and the potential for the future. So with there not being eternal damnation, or even the prospect for that, it means that there's always a way for someone to grow. It's also the reason why there's infinite potential for forgiveness in Sanatan Dharma. Because, the Satpurush can see a soul. Not only can they see the soul's past, but they can see the Karan Sharir. The Karan Sharir has so many potential future births that are some of them which are horrific, and some of them which are like so blessed. And so, it's very hard for us in this life to see beyond what
Our context frame is very small.
It's like this is all we can see. I can just see the few years of experience I have with you.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make a judgment about who I think Aksharatitdas Swami is. But the Satpurush, when Satpurush sees you, Satpurush sees your entire journey. And so when Bhagwan Swaminarayan is looking at Hari Bhakto and he's, giving them this guidance, and he's able to have this level of forgiveness despite himself being on such a high spiritual plane. So sometimes he'll say, look, at some point you're going to have to understand this. But he also puts it out there that if it happens after 100, that's up to you. You make that call. Because it has to be something you choose. It can't be forced on you. I want to jump in here.
I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take you to a place that maybe is a little uncomfortable.
Sure.
Okay? I feel like, you said this before, that it's about accepting God's will. And it's about starting from that position of acceptance and homeostasis with God's will, and then making choices and acting in a positive way going forward, right? It sounds like a very simple statement, but sometimes people like me have a hard time understanding that. Like, I remember going up to Dr. Swami once and being like, Swami, I don't understand how I can care about something and be passionate about something, and yet at the same time be like, yeah, well, if it succeeds, it succeeds, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, how do I care about someone and how do I care about something without being passionate about the outcome is not something that I could really understand very simply. But as you're saying here, Maharaj is maybe helping us understand that line to say, do what you can and always hope for the best. But the Karamanyavadhikaraste Gita kind of application, but that balance is always something I think difficult to understand. Like, okay, it's acceptance, but it's action. It's responsibility, but it's also like left to God's will. That balance, if you have any insight on, I'm really curious about, because I always find it challenging.
So I'll agree with you that absent of these other things and just on, hey, ultimately Bhagwan's will is what happens. If that's going to be the presiding sort of principle around everything that we do, then
a leaf
how
doesn't
do
have
you,
a steering wheel.
Well, yeah, how do you become passionate about stuff?
Yeah.
Right? That question. It's a hard question, but at least the way I think of that question is in reverse. So what I mean by that is that because I now feel like, okay, I need to figure this out, I have to accept it, I question my motivation outside of accepting Bhagwan's will. Because I don't trust it anymore. Okay, you're doing this not believing that Bhagwan is Sarva Karta, or the Bhagwan's will presides over everything. If you don't believe that, then what is actually motivating you? Am I going to be comfortable being motivated by ambition? By, fulfilling my ego, boosting my pride, or building up my self-worth on something that's temporal? And those questions are what actually get there for me. So it's in reverse. It's not necessarily...
It's removing the false motives to give God the space to move in.
Yes. Because then I can't say that it's not those things, because I'm not accepting this. And so if I want to get ultimately to a point where maybe my performance is hurt, but I'd rather make small strides with a better intent than giant strides where I don't get the return on that I'm trying to get, especially if I'm practicing spirituality. Like if I'm engaging in, for example, a fast, Ikadashi fast. If I'm performing this fast and if I'm not motivated by it for the right reasons, that's a lot of effort and a lot of strain. And then you don't get what you want from it, right? And then it's like, man,
Oh, God.
I suffered for nothing, right? So you want all of the effort to mean something. And so I feel like it might be a better trade-off to be maybe in a less active state. But again, I mean, I can't say definitively that's the right answer. I think there are definitely instances where when you do something for Bhagwan, for the Satpurush, for your satsang, for your progress spiritually, and maybe there's an element of it where you're doing it for social acceptance, because that's definitely the case in the early stages of our satsang. That we're part of a community. You can't escape that, and you don't want to be the person who's bringing everybody else down. Well, I mean, that's not an idealistic motivation, but it's still something that helps move us along. Bhagwan Swami Maharaj, I came across something where I was reading about how Bhagwan Swami Maharaj was discussing the nature of Rajipo, which is, to earn, I guess, validation from the Satpurush, right? And that's what all of us are seeking. We want validation from Bhagwan. One of the great things about being a spiritual aspirant is that your source for validation is from an omniscient force, an entity that sees everything. And any worldly source of validation doesn't have that power. So you can always either trick that source of validation, which is general public, or whichever one or two people that you feel are most important to you, and you can lie and cheat and all those things, and no one would know. And in this case, on the outside, you can underperform. But because the source of your validation is omniscient, every effort you made, every challenge you face, every obstacle that got in your way, it all contributes to that validation. So that's a great thing. And
so no struggle seems useless.
Every moment counts, and every choice counts. And it's the only place, that's one of the great things about being spiritual. And it's a way, that's why spirituality can really, really help you raise your bar on what we say with pramanikta, where how sincere and authentic can you be as a human being?
Okay, so what I'm understanding here is to be passionate about something is not being passionate about success from these other metrics. But being passionate is being passionate about doing something in a way that pleases God. And that sounds like a simple statement until we explain it like you did, to say, what is God or the Satpurush pleased with? And therefore your passion becomes about doing it well. And because you do it well, you start getting validation from God that you've done your best. And that becomes enough to kind of give you grounding and joy and that. And then the end result becomes secondary. Is that the way to look at it? So it's like the motivation is Rajipo. Rajipo is from an omniscient being, and therefore you doing it well with integrity and authenticity, you also start understanding that matters more, because that's what's getting the omniscient person's validation.
Yeah.
Or am I over rationalizing this?
No. I think you're right there where I'm thinking about this as well. I go to this idea that, when we're young and, if you're playing t-ball or you're playing some, youth sports when you're young, the first time you get into it, you might hear someone say, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game, right? And very early on, you realize how untrue that is.
From a worldly perspective. Yeah.
I mean, they can say it all they want, but what real life shows us is that it doesn't matter how you play the game. It matters if you win or lose. That's what everybody cares about. And you can play the game as idealistically as you want. Your preparation can be better than everyone else. And if one random circumstance causes you to lose, no one will remember you for it. And if you ever even think about bringing it up, people will say you're making excuses. People get fired, people get held out of Hall of Fames, people get held out of discussions on, greatest of all time, all because of sometimes random circumstance. And so the discussion around those things frames this in a very different way. And that different way is just the common worldly perspective. And we cannot escape that. It's very hard to escape.
And it's fickle is the point.
Yeah, and it affects us when we're trying to practice spirituality on our own. Because if I'm doing seva, right? If I'm doing bhakti, then it's hard for me to escape the realities of living in a community or in a society where someone around me, I do 15 dandavats and the person that I'm with does 18. And then the person gets praised for doing 18. And it's very hard for me to escape the effect of what that praise for that person does to me. When really, I don't need to if I'm not seeking validation from all these other sources. If I've done those 15 with love, then I can be happy for the person who gets praised for 18 and still be happy with the 15 that I've done.
And be happy for the guy who can only do 5.
Yes.
Right? Like that, there's no comparison.
Wow, he's doing a dhanvat. He's performing a dhanvat. And so now then, if I'm going to look at this in a bigger scale of my life in satsang, that what am I doing as a spiritual aspirant? What am I trying to achieve? Well, I want to make sure that if I'm doing work, there's a certain sense of responsibility that we all have to perform. And it's not right to say, okay, let me get my motivations in line before I actually do anything. That's not right. That's not fair.
Yeah. We'll never end up doing anything.
Yeah, we won't do anything then. So there's a balance there for sure. And I agree that, look, it's going to take a little bit of a hit on your passion when you become introspective. And it's going to slow you down a little. But if what you're thinking about is right, it actually has the power to sustain effort through very many different difficult situations.
So here's what I do when I question this, right? When this happens, I step back for 1 second, and when I talk about like passion in the effort, dispassionate about the outcome, in that framing, it seems very contradictory. So sometimes, put away your framing. The problem is the framing. So put away the frame. And then I think about examples. And I look at Bhagwan Swami Maharaj, and I look at Muktanand Swami Maharaj, and I say, are they dispassionate? 93, working 12, 14 hours a day, like, not dispassionate. Okay, Sadhguru Santos, right? Dr. Swami's here, Ishwar Swami's here. This is a person who, to this day, discourses, Dr. Swami, hour and 15, hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. Again, at 93 years old. He has, like, gone on campaigns just to get people to wear helmets and put on seatbelts.
When he's never going to sit on a scooter or motorcycle in his life.
Right? And he's done it, and he's done it, and he's done it. Gar Sabha, 40-year campaign. To this day, not everybody does Gar Sabha. But he has never given up. Sitting in Katha, stopping everything and doing Arti. Like, these are things he's been on for about 40, 50 years. Never given up. And yet, despite us not doing everything he wants, never upset, never depressed, never like let down, doesn't give up. The campaigns don't stop. Like, if you try 1 year and it doesn't work, and you try 2 years and it doesn't work, and 5 years it doesn't work, you don't try 40 years for something and not have it work and then still keep going if you're dispassionate. So if I put the framing away and I look at reality in front of me, okay, now I know objectively this can exist. And the question is, okay, then how is he passionate? And I think what you're saying is that if I want to be passionate, what I need is the fuel of motivation. And if I want motivation, I have 2 choices. The choice one for motivation is the external validation, the external gratification that comes from promotions, grades, awards, all these things that we do as social constructs to help our societies move in a certain direction. They may have some role to play, but each of those, and they are a fuel source, but that fuel source is limited because once you try to do something, Dr. Swami tries to do something, and he doesn't get recognized for it, and the people also don't start changing their behavior. So what ends up happening is that fuel source is limited and fickle, and so the passion actually dies down. It seems to us on first glance that a physical reward and a worldly validation would be powerful, and therefore the end result is the cause of my passion. But in fact, it's the second choice, which is inward validation, coming from knowing that God resides within me and sees everything I do, that actually becomes the eternal validation that you seek, and therefore you can do a 40-year campaign, even if the end results of success don't come through. So it's like, whether you think of it from a moksha perspective or a spiritual perspective, even from an objective perspective, if you have a finite fuel and an infinite fuel, to be passionate, it is to pick the infinite fuel, which is not dependent on the worldly outcome and more on your effort. Does that summarize, I think, what you're saying a little bit?
Yeah, and Dr. Swami has given that answer.
Oh, okay.
When he has this thing that he does where every once in a while he'll notice something that needs to change. And so he'll write a letter to the general Sant Samaj in our communities, and we'll read that in our Sant Sabhas. And a lot of times it's stuff that we can't really implement. It's very difficult, or it's impractical, or it's just too difficult.
It's outside of our grind sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. And yet he will continually make observations, make recommendations, and write them. And so he was asked about this very specific thing that, Swami, you see that there are times where we can enact this. Doesn't that frustrate you? Doesn't it make you feel like, you know what, I don't want to bother? And he said this. He's like, no, that's not my job. My job is to create that awareness, to share my thoughts. And I know it's someone else's responsibility to make the decision on whether or not to enact it. It's so simple for him, but he is so committed to what he's responsible for. And I think that not being distracted by that helps add to that commitment of personal responsibility. It actually makes him more capable than if he wrote a few letters and he took satisfaction from the fact that, hey, look, you see, because I wrote that letter, these people made these improvements. I don't think that would have been as powerful to sustain his effort through these decades as the source that he's gotten. That, look, I know what my seva is, what my responsibility, and I know who I'm answering to. And because he's answering to, as we said, an omniscient power for which every effort matters, he finds satisfaction in just writing the letter and sending it. Because now he knows, now I've done my part, now it's in Bhagwan's hands. He doesn't even, he's taken everybody else's responsibility and handed it over to Bhagwan. So he doesn't
to
even
inspire their hearts is your work, not mine.
Yeah. So this way, he doesn't even see me as, oh, see, I wrote to Bhaktivardhan, and he's just...
It's almost like he's writing to God, and it's God's choice to inspire the others. And it's really interesting because if you think of it that way, like these great truths, like the other validation for me of them being great truths, and this is not a good way to do it. I mean, the spiritual way is, look, man, I see it. Bapa's told me, God's told me. But I think another like worldly support of this is the fact that it's the same idea across traditions, right? So within Hinduism, if you look at what Maharaj says here in the Vachanamrut to what Krishna Bhagwan says in the Gita, you see this similarity. Step outside of Sanatana Dharma and you go to the Serenity Prayer that is famous within Christianity and the programs that Christianity runs, like Alcoholics Anonymous and these others. That Serenity Prayer is saying the same thing. Like, give me the strength to realize what's in my control and do the best I can and then leave the rest to you, right? And so that I don't find myself in a situation where I'm, kind of off tilt and really upset and then start making bad choices. And I think that's another, for me, it's another validation of what's being said here in the Vachanamrut. So yeah, thanks. You have, this was a year in the making, because ever since we talked about it on the phone, I had it in my head. I was like, I got to sit this guy down and see if we can.
I'm amazed that you remember.
But it's been good fun, and I'm gonna pray that I can take some of this and apply it in my life.
Me too, because there's stuff that we learned, but the application of it is really like a lifelong journey. We have to get better at it over time. Yes.
The one thing I'll say is I like the old word for things that used to happen at hospitals and clinics was practice.
Yeah.
Right? The legal profession was a practice. The medical profession was a practice. In the same way, sadhana is a practice. So let's all just pray that we can practice it a little bit better every day. Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, man.